It's time now for perspective. We are now just 2 days away from the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks that shocked and transfixed the globe, transformed America and dictated the geopolitical landscape of the 21st century. My guest today is Professor, terrorism specialist and author of 10 Attacks That Changed the World, currently only available in French, Cyrille Bret. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on France 24 today. Now, we often use that day as a universally recognised historical marker. There's pre-9/11 and post-9/11. Do you think it's always going to be like that?
Probably yes. This is a milestone in the global history, because everyone had an individual experience of that event. We all were more or less close to a screen, and we lived together, or at least at the same time, the same event. We watched the same pictures. We learned and heard the same stuff on the event, and it was a turning point for each and everyone in age of understanding or grasping what was happening. As you said, it reshaped the U.S. Politics. It reshaped probably the status of the country in the world, and it reshaped, of course, our individual and collective relation to daily security. We can no longer walk on the street or go to the office or go to the park or to the movies without fearing terrorist attacks now. So it has a long-lasting consequence on our daily life.
And in recent years, of course, we've had other very large-scale attacks, obviously in Paris, Mumbai, Brussels, to name just a few. Do you think, to some extent, we've accepted that this is just a part of daily life now?
Except, I don't know, it encompasses a certain level of resignation. But we now have to live with terrorist threats, of course. As you said, terrorist attacks are not limited or focused on the US, on Europe. We have to bear in mind that 90% of the victims of terrorist attacks over the last decade were Muslims in Muslim countries. So it's a worldwide threat. We tend to forget that Nairobi in Eastern Africa, or Mumbai in India, or everywhere else can be a target of the terrorists. So we have to live with it everywhere. In Tunis, of course, in Maghreb, of course. So we all have to live with that. We cannot accept that, because at the end of the day, it will paralyze the way we live. We live on a daily basis and on the collective level. So yes, we have to accept that it exists such a threat. Otherwise, what should we do? Refuse all insecurity, and it will lead to, of course, an authoritarian regime shaped in order to diffuse and to make sure that no one can take the streets in order to make terrorist attacks. So we have the choice between freedom at the risk of insecurity, or authoritarian regimes that are not sufficient well equipped to avoid any attack. We can see it in Russia. The security measures in Russia are stronger than in Europe, and they had to suffer many terrorist attacks.
And do you think that here in Europe, governments have learnt hard lessons? Do you think the security situation in France and the UK, for example, is significantly different to how it was 20 years ago?
Yes, it reshaped the British legal background after the attacks of 2005. It reshaped also the way the Spanish authorities have organized the national security after the attacks in Madrid in 2004, and of course after 2015 in France, and then unfortunately in Belgium, in Germany, in Spain again, in Sweden as well. The police services and the legislation have been reshuffled, reshaped, in order to ensure that the terrorist attacks can be avoided and can be prevented.
And in your book, you also talk about the human collective response to these sorts of attacks, the way in which sometimes extraordinary, devastating, traumatic attacks can actually bring people, communities together.
Together, yes. This is the first short-term consequence, in Europe at least. In Spain, protests. In the UK, protests, of course. And a collective, a collective denial of public violence. But the real political and social and collective challenge is to make sure that the reaction against violence will last in the long run. And in France, we are in the run-up to general elections, and it will be at the center of the public debate. It will be the case also in Germany, where Chancellor Merkel will be replaced. And we have to bear in mind that Germany is no longer in a situation where terrorists are not interested in Germany. And everywhere, the public debate, the elections, and the collective response of the citizens, of the ordinary people, are of key importance. The state and the specialized services are no longer the only actors, the only players against terrorists. It's now a question of collective response.
Cyrille Bret, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Cyrille Bret, author of 10 Attacks That Changed the World, currently only published in French, but hopefully in English soon. Thank you so much for speaking to us on France 24 today.
Thank you.